Hello. Let us know if you're here. Welcome to the Tales of Starlight book club. We will be discussing One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. If you have not read this, please scroll.
Right.
This has spoilers, and more spoilers.
Yes.
But I guess I'll introduce myself. I am Sam at a Sparka Sam. This is my channel. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm a Sparka Sam library. And my co-host,
I'm April. I own Tisso Sweet. I make bags and pouches and all things with my sewing machines. And I am at Tisso Sweet on Instagram if you want to follow me. And I just got back into reading about a year ago, and I love fantasy. So that's why Sam and I kind of brainstormed and started this fantasy book club, because our favorite one kind of halted. So we were like, hey, do you mind if we pick up where you left off? So yeah, that's me.
and we were pretty much buddy reading everything anyway. So we were
Yeah.
like, we might as well have more people
Yeah.
join in the discussion and talk about it. So, yeah, One Dark Window was one that there was a lot of hype with last year, and I know I had been wanting to read it, and so we decided after reading Iron Flame, which was a new release, that we would read one that's been sitting for a few months on our shelf. So that's why we went with One Dark Window, and I figured we would start off with any if there's any parts that you're confused with. I know that I only like read this physically, and I know I struggled just with the pronunciation of words, and so it slowed me down. I personally struggled with who was related to who, and like who had what cards, and um I think the biggest confusion for me was Elm and Emery are cousins living with each other's families.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that Emery is the one who has this infection, this disease, this magic that's taking over and killing him, who's living with the king even though he's sick. And meanwhile, the king's son, Elm, is living with his cousin and plotting to overthrow his like own family. So
Mhm.
that kept on kind like I kept getting confused. I think it's just because they were both E names,
Mhm.
but they're like there was a lot of cousins living with each other's family. Like
Yeah.
even our lead lived with her
Right.
cousins. I was just like, that must be a popular thing. Like, go live with your aunt and uncle and
You have an infection. Get out of my house.
yeah. We don't want
One
you
kid.
here, so you can go there. But it was just like everybody trading children.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's literally my biggest confusion was Elm and Emery, and even with their personalities. Like Elm would start talking, and I'm like, this is the one who has the infection. And then he starts smarting off, and I'm like, no, wait, is he mad? What's going on? And then they would say his name again and again. And I'm like, oh, this is not Emery. Emery's the one with the infection. Elm is not. And so it was, oh, I guess maybe, yeah, maybe because their names were just so close to each other. Like,
Yeah, which technically Elm's name is Renelm,
yeah,
but they're like shortened it. I'm like, why? Give us more
right,
names.
yeah,
So
uh,
that was my
yeah,
biggest gripe. That and I think she did a great job at explaining what the cards did, but there were so
yeah,
many times they would be like, "Oh, I could see that color," and I'm like, what was that color? What was that one?" And I would get confused on which card was which that was just me getting hung up on things that I didn't need to get hung up on, but I did feel like it was a lot of characters and a lot of like history thrown at us in the beginning.
yeah.
Um
Yeah, one good thing, I'm a sucker for having the audio and reading the book because I'm such a slow reader that, and I had a crazy psychotic uh, month this month. I mean, it was just so busy. So I knew that if I didn't have the audio to push me along, I would not have finished it. And literally, I would not have. I finished it this morning, even with the audio. But the audio, I felt like kept pushing me forward to where I didn't get hung up on those things. But then I would question things, but then by the time I wanted to go back, I'm like, it's too late. I'm just gonna keep going. So,
Yeah.
but I really, really, really loved learning the magic system. Like, it was super cool how she did it.
Yeah. I think, like, the concept of the cards is really cool, but trying to
Mhm.
grasp the history, the cards, the family dynamics, all of that was it's like I don't think it has, like, a beginner-friendly fantasy per se.
Yeah.
I would say it's, like, more of a intermediate coming from, like, a novice fantasy reader.
Yeah, I could see that too because there's a lot of things in play at one time. So instead of just world building, you're learning a magic system, you're learning a whole entire royal family. So of course that involves a lot. And then they don't have the same names for the people inside the royal court that we know of. So it's also trying to learn their royalty lingo too. So yeah, yeah, it's
Yes,
definitely
it
intermediate.
that's how I felt too, like, they had different names in hierarchy, and, like, if they're not knights, they're the Destier Des
Definitely. Yeah,
yeah, and trying to pronounce things in my head and then understand what that meant, like, a kni essentially, they're just like knights, and they said that, but it's a new word on top of, you know, that, so, it was definitely a learning curve, also, you only know so much at a time, so I it was a learning curve.
yeah.
Hello, wanted to pop in and say hey. Still working through the book, but we'll watch this back hopefully later this week. Yes, I want to know what you guys hear. If you watch it later, make sure to leave comments and follow along, and still feel free to answer questions because we'll still make sure to come back on. And if you want to, we have a Discord linked in on our Instagram, so you can follow along on there if you're still reading through. There's chapter
Yeah.
breakdowns, so we would love to hear your thoughts, even if you're finishing it on this off month of ours. So, okay. What else was I there was something else I was gonna say about confusing. Oh, I guess like the location. The fact that like so they have all these elaborate names and then it's stone. And
Right,
like
right.
isn't it like in Blunder, like and then
Wonder,
you
yeah,
have to learn the house names and stuff, and I was like,
right,
"I need a map." I was actually really disappointed that it didn't have a map. I think that would have helped me a ton just visualize a
yeah,
little bit more, but
yeah. And they didn't carry the houses, like, majorly throughout the whole book. So, where I get it was, like, you just learn about the 2 houses, the Rowan and Spindle, but still, like, there was more I felt like there was more in the beginning than we got throughout the rest.
well, yeah, because you have Hawthorne, Spindle, you is that how you
Oh,
say
yeah,
the
yep, mhm,
like, you have all of these last names, and then they have colors and trees that signify different things, so I loved it, but to
yeah,
me, it was, like, so much at once.
yeah,
So it's one that I would love to go back and, like, if I ever get the audiobook, I would love to re-listen to it now knowing what I know to process it, but
yeah. The
going back
narrator is great,
is
so
she? Is it a
just to put
girl?
that out. Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
she
she's great. She doesn't do crazy voices, changing it too much, but she does it just enough to where it's different.
is the Nightmare's voice cool?
Not like did you listen to Sorcery of Thorns, or did you only read it
I
with,
don't remember.
with his name? With, the demon Matt, but it's not not like that. It's more of a whisper
Okay.
and more. He was a whisper, cunning type of character, like you know, na 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 na. So she did a good job to not make it creepy to where I didn't want to listen to it,
Mhm.
but to keep it creepy, I guess.
Okay, with that, what was your rating?
So I did really enjoy it, and I am a terrible rater, but as far as my ratings go lately, this was a 5 star for me. So I didn't have anything that I hated about it. I just finished a book that I rated a 3.5 because it frustrated me. I
Mhm.
wasn't I didn't get to a point where I was frustrated. I wanted to put it down. It kept me on my toes. I loved it. So I loved the adventure and I can't wait to get to the next. So yeah, 5 stars for me.
For me, I really loved it. And I read it like pretty consistently. I had to kind of squeeze it in at the end these last couple days. Uh but I did find myself having to reread stuff multiple times to understand it. And I'm just like I've had a hectic last couple of weeks and I just read Crescent City 1 and before that I finished A Court of Silver Flame. So I'm like heavy reading fantasy right now. So my brain's kind of burnt out. But I give it 4 stars because I really loved it, and I love, just, like, the riddles and the rhymes. I thought that was so clever, but I found myself, like, struggling to process it. So to me, it was just, like, not having the audio, trying to pronounce things, it just held me up, but I still really
Yeah,
loved it. When I give things 4 stars, I still love it. Um, to me, it just wasn't super easy for me to read.
yeah, I get that.
Um, okay. Who was a favorite character of yours? I worded these really weird, I apologize.
That's all right. You go first.
So, I really like if we go for main characters, I'm always a sucker for main characters. It's really hard for me not to like, Elspeth, and I really liked, Raven. I really
Mhm.
like those 2. But if we're going off of side characters, I mean, I loved the Nightmare. I thought he was so fun and what he would say. You actually said it on Discord, that he reminded you of Venom, and to me,
Mhm.
I love Venom. Uh, and I also really liked, is it Jesper, the
Yeah,
sister of Raven? I really
yeah.
liked her. I
Mhm.
think those were, like, my favorite characters. I can't pick ever just one, but those were ones that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to say the same as, I love Elspeth, like, she was just, she didn't ask for what was put on her, but she had to deal with it, and she kept it to herself for as long as she possibly could, so that's a struggle in its own, and then I definitely loved Raven. I loved the fake dating trope that was thrown in there,
Mhm. I wasn't
and
expecting that at all.
like, I was like, "What? Why? How is this in a family?" Anyways, it was great, and which led to one of my favorite lines. Anyways, we'll get to that later, but, um and I loved Emery. Like, he was just he was infected, he had a different so I was curious with the nightmare card and the nightmare and the mist and how that all maybe that was another confusing part for me, how it all came together, but you do find out more about Elspeth at the very end, about how it actually came to be. Because I thought she touched the nightmare card, therefore she was infected. And then I'm like, so Emery touched the nightmare card and now he's infected. So then does he have the same voices in his head? So the whole book, I'm thinking that they're the same. So that they are on the same wavelength.
That's literally what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. So when she explained that at the end, I'm like, "Okay, I needed that," but it kind of
Mhm.
gives you, like, a false direction up until
Yeah.
she explains that, and so I don't know if that's gonna lead to something more, but I was
Right.
very confused on how that worked, because then I was like, "Her uncle had it, did he touch it?" Like, and then I
Right.
thought all cards, if you touch them, you got some infection, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was very confused at that for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So then I, so it made me kinda go back and forth, like, what are we what's going on? But I loved Emery, and I felt, my heart was breaking for him as he was de degenerating?
yeah,
What?
I think that's the way they said it. Well, and especially because, when you first meet him, he's kind of awful, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah,
And then you find out, oh, well, he's sick and he has all these issues and yeah, and then like your heart breaks for the family and all of them. Hi, Danny. Thanks for stopping by. Um, okay, I have this like twice kind of. We'll see how which way we want to put it. Okay, we'll go with what was your favorite line?
mm,
Um,
mm,
I there was a lot.
yes.
Um, Like, okay, I liked this one, on page 248 where it says, "I felt tethered, wrapped in an invisible string that tied me to the captain of the dressiers, however you say that."
Mm,
Um, and that just gave me, like, Taylor Swift Invisible Strings vibe. But that's where I thought there still could be something that's, like, tying them together. Like, I
yeah,
don't think we know everything about Raven like we do about Elspeth, you know?
right. Yeah, yeah. The one that sticks out to me that I read it on Kindle, so, um, it's harder to keep track of your favorite lines. I mean, I know there's a highlight section, but I was also highlighting stuff that was like, "This might be important later," kind of thing,
Mhm,
so I just need to know that for next time I read Kindle. But my the one that stuck out to me, I read it today, where when they Hoth used the scythe card, and it got to Elspeth's turn, and she had to ask Raven a question, and Raven wasn't susceptible to the scythe's powers, but she knew he would be, honest with her. So she was like, "Are you still pretending?" And I'm
mhm.
like, "There's the fake dating trope
Yeah.
confirmation right there." Like, and he was like, "No," and I'm like, "Yeah, I loved it." So that was, but I've highlighted so many other ones. I love all
Well,
the rhyming.
yeah, oh my gosh, the rhymes, I thought it was so well done to have as
Mm,
many rhymes and riddles in those rhymes. I thought it was really well written in that aspect. Confused me
yeah,
a heck of a lot, but I loved it.
right.
I think it added to the atmosphere and to, like, the whole mystical, magical, hundreds of year old tales going on. I loved it.
Yeah,
I also did love, like, the motto, the "Be wary, be clever, be good."
yeah,
I thought that's really interesting that it's said over and over and over in the book.
yeah. And, it kinda made me think even in reality, like, a parent, a mom, a whatever, you know, "Okay, you're going out into the world, be cautious, be careful, but make sure you still be good inside of it." So, it was just I loved it. And be clever, be thoughtful, be mindful, be smart, you know?
I don't know why this book reminded me a lot of, like, Taylor Swift songs because it really like, that line made me think of, like, Marjorie, where it's like, "Never be so kind you forget to be clever, never be so clever you forget to be kind."
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
to me,
yeah,
it has that aspect, like, like, you gotta be wary, but you can be
yeah,
clever and you can be good. It just to me, I'm
yeah.
like, "This reminds me of Taylor Swift." I'm
Yes,
living for this.
awesome. That's so great.
Um, okay, well, apparently I was really into quotes because I did like 3 questions that were all essentially the same, but this one's a little bit different, like, Do you think there was any foreshadowing into the next book, or did you see anything in the beginning that led towards the end? Um, I know I highlighted so many things in the beginning because I'm like, that might be something, that might be something. Um,
A lot of, the nightmare repeated it several times. Magic comes at a cost, which that was something that, once upon a time, show that, everything magic comes at a price. So it's a general theme, but he continuously reminded Elspeth of that. Like I have like four different highlights that where he says magic always comes at a cost. But, so yeah,
yeah,
obviously something taken even more than what we know already.
and I don't know if, like, there's anything to do with the colors of the cards. Like, I don't know if that it's just because, like, she could see them and determine them, or if there's more meaning into the colors. I also thought it was really interesting that each family, like, their tree, like, all the families are named on trees, and it's this isn't it the spirit of the woods?
Yes,
And they're
Spirit
all
of the
named
Woods.
after trees.
Yeah,
I thought that
yeah,
was really cool, and, like, the fact that they all have, like, colors and the tree is, like, their family crest, and they wear it proudly,
mhm,
and it was like, is this leading to something more, or is it just because it's just all based around plants? Like, their names are after trees, they plant the
right.
trees, and there was a line, it was something about, like, the trees have been here longer than the buildings kind of
Oh,
essence, and I'm like,
yeah,
is that gonna hold more into the next book that, you know,
yeah,
is this something? Or, another one I have highlighted is the highwayman meets the hangman always.
mhm,
And it's like, if you're gonna be a bad guy, you're gonna find, your end eventually. And so,
yeah,
with that big
yeah,
cliffhanger, I guess we can talk about that big cliffhanger at the end, how I was not I mean, I knew that the nightmare was gonna take over, but I guess
right,
I was expecting something to happen to Raven and not to Elspeth. So,
yeah,
I really wasn't expecting that, and I'm curious on how that's going to lead into the next book. Like, he's in her body, like, is she
yeah,
just, like, mentally gone? How do you get her back? Is she savable because her body is still there? Or
right.
I have so many
'Cause
questions.
she used to always describe him as like way far back in the corner of her mind. So
Mhm.
is she are they just swap places?
Yeah,
And now
that's how
she needs stronger. He has to tap into her in the next book, like how where it, or is it going to take all the cards to break the connection and to separate the two? You know,
well, and, like,
maybe it'll be separated.
what's the nightmares? Like, what is the Shepherd King's end game? Like,
Yeah,
is he just stuck in a this female's body? Like, how does he like, how does his soul move on or
right,
continue? Like, what I
right,
wanna know what the nightmare's end game, like, I know they're trying to, like, break this curse, but, like, what's the next step? And
right. Like, is it gonna be like Venom and they can separate and they can be
mhm.
two different people? You know? Like
Yeah, like, is he gonna have to take over someone else's body? Like,
right, right.
is his body gonna come back? How does this work, you know? So, I am curious on how
Now,
that will work.
I did highlight it, let me see if I can find it, maybe not. But there is a line that said right here. It was his castle, the one in ruins. The first Rowan king burned it down, murdered him and his family. I looked up at Raven, my eye damp with salty tears. He's buried beneath the stone in the chamber at Castle U. So if he is buried there, can he leave her body and go into his body? They dig it up.
See, and that's kind of like what I felt like her dream of like where she was covered and she woke up and covered in the dirt and digging, like,
Mm,
was that trying to get him like dig him up? And the fact that she didn't need the stone to like reveal the secrets. I feel like that ruin is going to hold a lot more weight in the next book.
yeah, yeah. I
I'm excited for it. Also, how
am
weird
too.
of a room that has no doors, just a window. Weird.
Yeah, yeah, I and so because I kept thinking in the book, I'm like, "The book is called One Dark Window. Where's the window?
Right?
What window are you talking about?" And then
I
finally it was like, "It has one dark window," and I'm like, "I highlight." There it
Well,
is.
and then by the time that actually, like, popped up, it was farther into the book too, which I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
there's the title."
yeah,
Um,
I
did
have
you
it.
guess when she was having those dreams that that was going to be that room? Because I didn't, and normally I guess that kinda stuff. It was like,
No,
"Whoop."
I didn't see that. Nope,
I
nope.
didn't guess that at all. I think that was, like, one of the biggest things that, was foreshadowed in the beginning. Like, she
Yeah.
has these dreams of this man, and when it turned out to be the Shepherd King, I didn't guess that either, and I
I
was like,
didn't
"Well, that
I
was
didn't
apparent." I don't know why.
yeah. I think in the beginning, I might have, like, maybe briefly thought it, but it was not something that I was like, is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it?" You know?
Mhm,
Because they talk. Because even Nightmare King I mean, Nightmare King, even the Nightmare mentioned the Shepherd King. So,
mhm,
because even though he did talk in 3rd person or whatever, yeah,
mhm.
yeah, 3rd person, it still didn't ring a bell that
Yeah,
it was one of the things.
I think that's what threw me off was that to me, I didn't I guess I wasn't knowing. I was thinking that the nightmare was gonna be more of, like, the spirit of the woods. It's like this, just mystical, magical being that got stuck inside of her. I wasn't expecting it to be a soul of a person,
Yeah,
um,
right.
that has, like, degenerated over time because it's been hundreds of years. Um, but
Yeah,
I thought, like, when she was having all the dreams and all of that, I was not expecting that to be this room where Raven was gonna take her and all this stuff was going to happen. But now looking back, I'm like, "Oh,
yeah,
it makes sense."
right.
Um, there's something else I was gonna bring up, but I don't remember it right this second. I don't have a ton of questions written down, because there's sometimes it's just easier to just keep going. Oh,
Oh,
hey, I'm late, but I'm listening from Applebee's.
hi, Wendy.
Thanks. Thanks, Wendy. Um did you finish the book, Wendy? I think you did. What did you think of it? What did you rate it? Feel free to um answer any of the questions. Um, I guess like a off the cuff kind of one. If you had one of the cards, what card would you choose and why? So I actually, April, you sent me a link to a place that website that broke everything down. So I was looking at the cards, and it's also nice because they have it has a list too of what is at cost if you use that card.
I didn't
Um
even get down that far.
Oh, I this is what I don't know why I got really hung up on how many cards there were. Like I know they kept saying like there's only a couple left, but the one thing that really also confused me was the twin alders. There's only one card. And the fact that it says twin alders or alders, all I could think of
Yeah,
is that there's two.
elders.
And the
Right,
fact
right.
that there's only one really threw me off.
Did
Um
you notice that it goes from 1 in order from the bottom to the top? So 1 twin alders, 2 nightmares, 3 mirrors, 4 sighs, 5 iron gate, 6 well, 7 chalice, 8 maidens. It goes all the way to 12. Or is that the yeah, quantity in circulation. So the most that's in the cards is a black horse.
Yes.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
That's what, like, I was getting so hung up on that because I was highlighting yeah.
Yeah, I definitely tuned that out.
No, well, that's where I'm like, I didn't know how important it was gonna be for us to know it, and so that's where I was getting really hung up. Yeah, because it says, there were 12 black horses, because
Oh,
each of the
okay.
guards got one, 11 golden eggs, 10 prophets, 9 white eagles, and it lists them, but you
It
don't
did.
realize that's actually, like, a lot of cards.
Yeah, that's a lot. Because the well because they were searching so hard for it, I think, but they knew who had it, so they were zoned in. But,
Yeah,
like, why can't so I was thinking there was, like the well was very, um, rare
rare.
because they were just so honed in on just Eric, just her dad, I was like, "Oh, well, maybe that's the only one." I
Well,
didn't
and
think
that's where I was getting caught up too on, like, what the different cards meant, and I was like, "Oh, like, it's a big deal," and really, it was like, "Okay, just keep reading."
yeah,
Um, but because they normally did, they said, like, "Oh, but then you have, like, Raven where these ones don't work, and then this," and it was just, like, a lot to keep track of.
yes. Yeah.
Um, Wendy said she liked it. I feel like I need to reread or re-listen. Yes, it's just there was a lot, and I love that in fantasy books. But just with how small it was, I was like, "Dang, they packed in some info in there."
Yeah.
Um, but a 3.5. Okay, I gave it a 4, April gave it a 5. Yeah, I found it all, like, super interesting, but a little overwhelming. Um As for what card I think I would like, um, I was honestly thinking like the Iron Gate because it's blissful serenity no matter the struggle. But
Mhm.
the the return of using that is it steals years from one's life. And I'm like, oh, well,
Mhm.
yeah, you can't be happy for long.
Right. I I was going towards the mirror, just to be invisible
Good.
because because I'm just so busy all the time, and sometimes I just wanna be invisible so somebody else can do what I do.
See, meanwhile, I literally had this conversation with, Matt, my husband, the other day about, like, if you had a superhero power, what would it be? And, he was like, "Oh, you don't wanna be invisible?" And I'm like, "I feel like I'm invisible 90% of the time anyway." So, I'm like, "I feel like I'm, Violet from The Incredibles anyways. I could just disappear and no one notices me anyways." So, you you're like, I would
But
love
yeah,
to
I
have
love
that.
that's like today, I'm like, "I'm doing nothing, I'm a vegetable, don't call me, don't talk to me, nothing,
Do you know what's
nothing."
funny though? I so if you use the mirror for invisibility, it lifts the veil between worlds, exposing a world of ghosts. And
Oh, no.
you don't like scary
Not
stuff, so that's
I would not do well. Just kidding,
that's
I
kind of
take that back.
funny.
I don't want it. I don't want it.
You're like,
Nope.
"Never mind, I won't be invisible."
Never
Okay,
mind, I wanna be maiden, I wanna be beautiful.
yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, we didn't even talk much about, Ione? Is that how you say her name? The cousin's name?
Mhm.
Um, how much she changed. I
My
felt so bad for Elspeth because she talked so highly
Mhm.
of her cousin and how much she really loved her, and watching how quickly she changed, and then when she uses the maiden card to become more beautiful, she becomes colder and her heart becomes more cold, and I love the contrast, like,
Yeah,
you get more, you lose more of
Right.
something, and I just thought it was so well written on what was the give and take. Now, we know that Raven can't use all the cards anymore. That's like him losing power is the cards don't affect him, but he also can't use them. And I think it's crazy because he uses some of the rarest cards. He
Yeah.
uses the mirror and the nightmare. And so he's lifting the veil between worlds, exposing the ghosts. And it also reveals one's deepest fears, but we
Yeah.
don't get that inside yet.
Right. We
So
haven't
I
heard much
wonder,
we haven't heard much from Raven's mind yet. Like his perspective, right? We
yeah.
haven't heard much yeah.
So that's kind of
Obviously.
crazy. I really thought he was going to have his own monster in his head talking to him,
Right.
and, like,
And
I
I
even
thought
thought
maybe
that,
that's why
like
she was afraid.
I almost thought that they had the same monster in their head,
Yeah. Which is
and
why she was
so
afraid to let him in because she didn't want her to know that she knows what his secret is and she wanted to keep her secret. So stay out. I don't want you to know that we're the same.
mhm. Yeah, I'm so curious about the second book. I mean, so with a one of the last questions I have, but if we come up with any more, we can. Will you read the next one? I mean, yes, I'm gonna find out. Am I gonna read it right this second? No. I would like to buy the book, and it's not like super priority, but it is like something I would like to read this year. Um, just so I can put that final puzzle piece together.
Yeah. Yep, same here. I have a big list of TBR that like I need to get to like right now. Like I have my right now list. This is
Mhm.
on my list. It's for later. I like where the story ended. I like that it's a cliffhanger, but I like that it did wrap up to where I can handle the suspense to wait for the next book. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good question too, is like, did you like the cliffhanger and that it ended on a cliffhanger?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question.
I liked it. I like cliffhangers, but I like cliffhangers when I feel like it wrapped up what this book's focus was on. I realize we don't have the last card, but leaving it as the Shepherd King took over Elspeth and the fact that he knows where this card is cuz he was the last one to use it. I think
Yeah.
that was a great like cliffhanger to lead into the
Yeah.
next book. It tied a lot of it up. We got so much information. We got the relationship of the two. I guess we can talk more about that too. I definitely want to do a reread and read the second book. I think I'll like it even more once I reread because of all the info. Agreed. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like if I can get the audiobook and listen to it and then listen or read to the second one, it'll really I that's what I love about fantasy is, like, when you read it in the beginning, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so confusing," and then you reread it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this all makes so much sense." It's like learning another language, you know?
Yeah.
And so I agree. I will definitely, like, reread or re-listen before I get into the second one. Let me type that in real quick of I have to spell his name.
Ravyn.
That was the thing is, like, some of these names were really simple, but she just spelled them a little differently.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in Raven, I could even see Rayv whatever in, like
mhm.
Ray.
So, like, what did you think of the relationship between them? Did you like how it progressed? Did you like, the speed? I wasn't expecting any spice, and there was a little, not a ton, but I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting any of that. I don't know why. I hadn't heard anybody talk about it. I guess normally people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's spicy." Um, like, if a
I
book
never
is
even
spicy, but no one said anything, so I wasn't expecting any spice, but there was a little bit.
and nobody even I never heard anybody say, "Oh, their love is so sweet," or, "Oh, I love that they got together. I'm so happy. I like the so I wasn't expecting any relationship to
Yeah,
happen.
I wasn't expecting it to be so much of a romantasy as
Yeah,
it was. I really liked it. I thought it was like I loved the like bantering.
yeah,
Um, I felt like it went really slow and then went kind of fast, but I do like them together. I like that they both feel like these outcasts and that they,
yeah,
he kind of feels like he owes it to his family to find this cure for his brother. And he knows he's not a good guy, and instantly I'm like, "Morally gray men, sign me up." So, I
yeah,
loved him, and I really like, Elspeth is so strong. She's
mhm,
dealt with this nightmare in her head for 11 years, and so I
yeah.
think, like, they can relate on so much, and I'm curious on how the relationship is gonna go now that she's not in her body.
Right, like, how how is she gonna come back? How is he gonna get her back? But I loved I loved the progression. I loved the, like, almost like Reese connection with,
Mhm.
with Sarah to where he did get into her mind and then could reach out to her and talk to her and, you know, I mean, I know more of it was finding out what was up, but that right there at the end when she was beat and like, abused,
Yeah.
um, reaching out to her and her not being physically able to reach back out to him and the panic that you heard in his voice, it was just I loved that I felt so bad for her too with the scythe card when she was forced to say that she loved him.
Yes. Oh my
Oh,
gosh. And, like, the
God.
way she described it as, like, she felt these feelings, but she wasn't
Yeah,
ready to share that yet.
mhm,
And, like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, like, I think we've all been there where it's like, yeah, you're
mhm,
so nervous, and then she had to publicly say
yeah.
that when she felt like this was so new and she was embarrassed, like, oh, the secondhand embarrassment I felt.
Oh my
I
gosh.
felt so bad, and the fact that her cousin asked her, it was so, like, sad, but then there was that, you know, then you found out that Hoth was actually, like, controlling
Oh, yes.
her.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I got so mad. I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh," that, like, infuriated me, but yeah, like, I just felt like this book was really complex for how short it was. Like, it could
Yeah.
easily be like any of the other fantasies where it's like double in size, and I think it could've, but I think to keep its complexity, the rhymes, the
Yeah.
riddles, and all of it, she did a great job at keeping it shorter, but,
Yeah.
um I also loved it with Raven when he wasn't scared of anything that she told him or showed him. Like, he was like, "No, it's cool, it's fine," and that to me,
Right.
like, melted my heart. I was like, "Yep, I like him."
Well, and it could have taken that turn, the trope of, like, miscommunication, and then he'd be mad at her, and
But
he'll go off to the patrol mad, and then she doesn't know, and then she gets beat up, and then he don't I'm
yeah,
glad it didn't go that way.
it could have easily been, like, the 3rd what is it called? Like, the 3rd act breakup, and it
No,
wasn't, like, and that was
mhm,
I found that really, like, nice that it wasn't,
yes.
you know?
Yeah, me
He
too.
was just like,
Me
"No, I have to fulfill my duties. We cannot blow my cover," and that just was when Hoth took the opportunity to take her over, and
Yeah.
like, ugh. I was so scared and, like, with the uncle, like, oh,
Oh my
the
god.
scythe part is so scary, like, to me, I'm like, "Ah." Also,
Mhm.
I'm so curious what the nightmare did to Hoth, though, because the king said and everyone was saying, "He will never be the same." Like, is he paralyzed? Is he
Right,
like,
right.
what happened?
Yeah.
And
It's just like he said that his scratches were the same as, the other guys that she attacked in it started with an L. I wanted to
Lyndon?
say Linden, yeah, Linden. My scratches are the same as his, and you know, and but his were deeper because it was the nightmare, not just
Mhm.
Elspeth. She gave him full control over that situation. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing. If he maimed Orith like he did, what does he do to Hoth to barely leave him alive?
yeah, and that's where he was like, "My son will never be the same. Why would I, like, work with you, blah, blah, blah," like, all that. I was like, "What happened?" Not that I like Hoth. Personally
No.
am not a big fan of him, but I was like, "Oh my gosh,
Wish he
is this gonna play, like, a big part in him still being alive? Is he gonna want revenge?" He's very manipulative, like,
right,
or is he kind of, like, gone? I don't know. I always find it such a big deal when characters aren't killed off, because then you're like, "Oh no, what is going to
good.
happen?" But I don't know, talking about this has hyped it up even more to me. I'm definitely gonna read
Yeah,
the second one, maybe
yeah.
in a month or so, just so it's fresh in my mind. I really want the audio though. Um,
Mhm.
but no, I really enjoyed it, and I think the more I understand it, the more I will like it, and then I'll probably I don't know, who knows? I might rate it 5 stars after the second one, and I feel like it can all come together. I just struggled with, how much there is and trying to make sense of it all, but I still
Yes.
really loved it. I love trees and willow trees are my favorite. So when I guess like are there any like scenes that you liked um that we haven't talked about yet?
Um,
I personally
I
loved
did
I was
go
gonna say I loved it when she made I don't know if this also is like foreshadowing though. When she wove the crown from the willow and with the flower, like the rose, I kind of wonder like what it's a crown woven
right.
from a tree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I loved it because now my grandma has a big willow tree, and I'm like, this summer I'm gonna make myself a willow
Ooh,
tree crown for sure.
yeah. And the next book is called Two Twisted Crowns. So,
I even wrote that as like will you read Two Twisted Crowns? I did it
right.
okay, that's
So,
something.
you know.
That's
Hmm.
that's something. Okay, I was gonna ask, are there any scenes that stuck out to you? But that's, like, along with the lines and oops.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
did I did like the, ball or whatever was towards the end where they were looking for the wild card that they had the festival or something, what
the
I
market.
can't yeah, I couldn't figure out what it was called, but yeah,
I
market
was
day.
I was so confused when they're like, "Oh, yeah, the market, and you're wearing masks," and I'm like, "You're wearing masks?" And, like, they're all
Right,
wearing, like, cloaks or robes or whatever, and I'm like,
right.
"What kind of market is this?"
Yeah, yeah, so I put it in my head that it was like a banquet type of ball thing, and so I loved it. It made me feel like A Court of Thorns and Roses or like a Fourth Wing kinda esque, where it was like, sneaking around trying to find something.
Well, I totally, like, pictured, A Court of Thorns and Roses, like, with the masks when they were
Mhm.
like, "It's this festival, they celebrate," like, that's how they do it. I loved how when they said with the market, though, that they were buying each other, like, gifts and different
Oh,
things
yeah.
too, and I'm like, "That's kinda cool," like, can we have, like, a market where we get to dress up and it's kind of like I guess it's like a Renaissance fair, but it's all to, like, buy things because April and I both have are small business owners and we make and sell like handmade items. So I think that'd be cool to like
That'd be
have
so
something like that where we dress up and then sell stuff and you can buy different things. I think that's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's amazing.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who struggled with how much info there was. I definitely did. And I said earlier, I had just finished A Court of Silver Flames and the first Crescent City. So the amount of info, I was like, oh my gosh, like I just read 800-page books and I felt like this one had just as much packed into it. I
Mhm.
definitely don't think it was a beginner friendly um fantasy, but I really enjoyed it. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about you said the two twisted crowns and the willow crown, I'm like, oh, well, that is something. And
Yeah,
I loved how something so simple is like turning symbolic, you know?
yeah,
Oh, speaking of which, I loved it that like the trees to them are like the gods. And so when they swore, they said like trees. Like
yes. Oh my gosh. That was so funny. Oh my gosh.
it did surprise me because there was one like F bomb and then they said like shit the one time and I'm like,
Yeah. Oh,
I just like surprised me because
where'd that
they're
come
so
from?
they were like trees all the time, and I was just like, "Whoa, they do swear."
Yeah, it wasn't
Um,
much. Random.
yeah, it was kinda like, I don't wanna say trees again, so
Right,
we'll throw in some actual swear
right. It
words.
was so funny.
But yeah, anyways, that's all I had for, One Dark Window. I did really like it. I thought it was a cool take, and I thought it was definitely unique.
Yeah,
Um I if okay, here's a question. Are there any books that you would recommend to someone who read and liked this one? I
that's a
would
good thing.
recommend A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. I think that has very similar vibes,
Mm,
especially if you're a nature lover and like kind of I don't know, is it like medieval times? I'm not good with history, but like with the castles and the lore in that essence, I would say A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross is like something I would definitely recommend if you liked this book.
yeah. I would say Sorcery of Thorns and Roses. The nightmare just totally reminded me of I can't remember his name.
Or Sorcery
But
of Thorns.
yeah, Sorcery of Thorns. I was combining the 2.
Don't worry, I get so confused with all of the fantasy now.
Yeah, yeah. Because that one has a little bit more magic to it, like magical books rather than magic
Cards.
cards. Um, and I have not read Cackle, but I feel like maybe just because of the card, did I stop? Okay.
Nope, you're still
I
good.
have not okay, I've not read Cackle yet, but because of the cards, I wonder if anything would lead to that.
Right? Like, yeah, I just loved the lore of it. I love rhymes and the sisters, the half sisters and the mom
Oh, yeah.
definitely gave me Cinderella vibes. Like, I don't know how
Yeah,
you could not think Cinderella
right.
vibes with that. um but yeah, you kind of get thrown into the equinox ball, and then when you think about the equinox, there's like I feel so many fantasy books around, the equinox and
Yeah,
celebrations like that. And um but moving on to March. So we skip a month, so you have a break if you want to read the second one, or if you haven't gotten well, I was gonna say if you haven't gotten to this one, I don't think you would have watched any of this far. But we skip the month of February, and then we will be reading A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. And the second one to this actually comes out in April. So it'll be perfect if you read it and then really enjoy it, then you can read the next one when it comes out.
yeah.
So
And if you've already read it, then you can reread it. and still discuss it with us before the next one comes out. So
Yes. And I have this book. The audiobook used to be on Everend. It no longer is. Very frustrated. But I have it on hold on Libby. So if you're hoping um to get it, it is a more popular book. I know mine's at 17 weeks hold right now, but hopefully since it's not until the end of March when we'll be discussing it, hopefully we can get it in time and you'll be able to listen or read to it. If we find any more information on where to get it, how to read it, we'll let you guys know because it was available on Everend and it must have hit its limit and they haven't renewed it or something. So, but with that, I want to say thanks, April, for joining me and discussing with me. And I'm excited for all the things that we have coming up next.
yes, super excited. So thanks for everybody who hopped in. If you are still in the midst of reading, check out the Discord, talk over there, come back, comment with us along with us as we go through our discussion. Yeah, because we'll still be talking about this for the next couple weeks. So
I I think well, because I just finished it today too, and I read like half of it in the last 2 days. So I feel like I'm still processing it. And the more I think about it, where I'm like, oh, the crowd, and you're like, yeah, the next book. It's
yeah,
like, these puzzle pieces start going back together. So yeah, definitely check out the Discord if you still are looking to talk about it and chat about it, or if you picked up on something, like let us know. And once you start reading, you can get a head start in reading on Dawn of Onyx too and chit chat over there. So
yeah.
thank you guys so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
I